What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got Derek Lewis calling out a former champion, a Jake Paul piss test, and much more. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to see more videos just like this. Now let's get into it. Is Conor McGregor a problematic matchup for Charles Oliveira? Chael Sonnen believes so. Undisputed UFC lightweight champion Charles Oliveira is doing all he can to say that he's open to fighting Conor McGregor, the biggest name in the sport, if the opportunity would present itself. The problem is that UFC President Dana White has already said that Justin Gaethje is the #1 contender, and while Oliveira has acknowledged this, he is still beating the drum on social media and in interviews about a potential McGregor matchup, setting up a narrative that it's between these two opponents. But while some speculate whether an Oliveira-McGregor matchup could ever take place, Chael Sonnen is breaking down the matchup itself and says that McGregor presents more problems for Oliveira. The former lightweight champ was a knockout artist when he entered the UFC and well into his career, and while he hasn't shown that same zip in his last few contests, he was coming off long layoffs in those. Still, Sonnen believes that Oliveira has to be careful what he wishes for, and said as much on his YouTube channel recently.
If there's anybody that Conor is likely to beat to become the world champion, it is the sitting champion. Right now, Charles Oliveira, Conor McGregor is a fascinating matchup. It is very problematic for Oliveira. Conor McGregor is as good of a striker as this sport has ever seen. Oliveira is a very dynamic striker who showed some real wrestling prowess in a couple of contests, but in other contests didn't.
Uncle Chael goes on to talk about how Oliveira's ground game is incredible, but that Conor has shown that he's able to at least handle himself on the ground and can get up on his feet, and as we've seen, he does have the ability to shut anyone's lights out. But McGregor is still months away from returning to the octagon, owing to a broken leg that he suffered against Dustin Poirier in their trilogy bout last summer. His team is targeting a summer return, and in that time, the UFC could already have scheduled Oliveira versus Gaethje for the lightweight title. With McGregor still recovering from his injury and no opponent lined up yet, the press conference alone would make us tune in closely. Another one of you said, "Since he hasn't won a fight in many years, how about he fights someone out of the top 10? Do you even know Dana? No way that Dana wastes a Conor pay-per-view on a non-top 10 opponent. The old dude in the bar is still looking for him." Ha, the UFC signing the old dude at the bar would be hilarious. You guys can take part in the conversation on our community page. But what do you guys think about Sonnen's statements here? Let us know in the comments below. Francis Ngannou's success in boxing is far from guaranteed, says Michael Bisping. The highly anticipated heavyweight title unification bout between Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane is still over 2 weeks away, but there's no shortages of breakdowns and predictions all over this fight. For Ngannou, this is a pivotal bout, not only because of the fact that the title is on the line, but it's the last fight on his current UFC deal, and his future hinges on what happens on January 2nd in Anaheim, California at UFC 270. For his part, Ngannou has stated that no matter what happens, he wants to negotiate a clause in his next UFC contract that would allow him to fight professional boxing outside of the promotion. Ngannou is a terror in the cage, shutting the lights out of 12 out of his 19 opponents in his MMA career. A former middleweight champion and UFC color commentator, Michael Bisping, says Ngannou will need to shore up some holes in his striking if he wants to find success in the sweet science. Case in point, Bisping shared a few of his thoughts regarding Ngannou's striking and how it would translate to professional boxing.
The man is absolutely terrifying and hits ridiculously hard. However, against a boxer, you couldn't do that because when he swings, he leaves a lot of openings. Right? Hey, listen, if you catches him, God bless, because you you know, and there's no reason why he couldn't knock out these boxers, but he'd have to catch them first, and I don't know if he could, okay?
Bisping's criticism comes as Ngannou prepares to fight his former sparring partner in Ciryl Gane, who dismantled Derek Lewis last summer for the interim title in front of Lewis's hometown fans in Houston, Texas. He's no stranger to fighting in hostile territory, and with his own Muay Thai pedigree, this fight is sure to be an interesting striking affair that could see fireworks in the cage. Ngannou has knocked out each of his last 5 opponents and will be coming for blood. But do you agree with Bisping in that Ngannou needs to work more on his striking before he throws himself into the boxing deep end? ESPN raises prices for UFC pay-per-views and their pay-per-view package. The first pay-per-view of 2022 will also be the most expensive to watch in UFC history, Price hikes are being announced by ESPN as they increase the price to watch UFC pay-per-views on ESPN Plus by $5 from $69.99 to $74.99. They're also increasing the price of the ESPN Plus pay-per-view package, which also includes an annual subscription by $10 from $89.98 to $99.98. ESPN is no stranger to price hikes for UFC fans and have raised prices 3 separate times, as stated in this tweet. UFC pay-per-view prices since ESPN became exclusive provider in 2018. 2018 and 19, $59.99. 2020, $64.99. 2021, $69.99. 2022, $74.99. $15 over 4 years. A repeat of last year's buys, 8.6 million total, at this new price would net $645 million in pay-per-view revenue. This is what Ariel Helwani had to say about the price hike, questioning whether this will affect fighter pay. It's never been more expensive to be an MMA fan. The UFC has never been more profitable. Everything is doing great. Sponsorships, gate, buys, ratings, best year ever. So is it wrong to wonder why the fighters' cut pay isn't increasing as well? Of course not. And check out this funny interaction between Daniel Cormier and Khabib.
ESPN app. Yeah. Buy. It's only $70.
We have Russian link.
You have a link? Like you don't have enough money to spend.
Never pay for it.
You have so much money you can't give me $70.
Jake Paul passed his fight night drug test by Florida State Athletic Commission. Multiple sources, including the Sun newspaper, are reporting that the Florida State Athletic Commission have cleared both Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley for prohibitive substances for their December 18th rematch. Both fighters passed the fight night drug tests by the commission, testing negative for PEDs and all other banned substances from urine samples taken the night of the bout, in which Paul knocked out Woodley in the 6th round. The commission released a statement to the Sun newspaper that stated, "Both fighters submitted to a urinalysis prior to the bout. The Florida Athletic Commission does not release medical or testing results. The Florida Athletic Commission does not release medical testing information due to medical privacy. The penalties for banned substances are defined in Florida statutes." For weeks, Paul has been accused by many, including UFC President Dana White, of taking steroids for his pro boxing fights. The insinuation first came from Tommy Fury's camp, Paul's original opponent from the December 18th fight, who said that Paul declined VADA testing prior to the bout. Since then, Fury had to withdraw due to injury and Woodley stepped up and lost the fight by a KO. White even issued a challenge to Jake Paul, saying he would test White for cocaine for 10 years if Paul would be subjected to PED testing for the next 2 years. Paul responded with his own offer that centered around the UFC paying their fighters more money, raising the minimums for their bouts, as well as the revenue share agreement. Still, Paul is currently 5-0 in his pro boxing career, which includes fights against other YouTubers, an ex-NBA player, and 2 former MMA champions. But are you surprised that Paul and Woodley tested negative for PEDs the night of the fight? Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on the latest fight news. Eric Lewis wants to fight Stipe Miocic to get his fans' money back from the Cyril Gane bout. You gotta give it to Derek Lewis, always making light of any situation, and this one is no different. Lewis is coming off a vicious knockout win over Chris Daukaus at UFC Fight Night 199 last month, which earned him the record for most knockouts in UFC history. The win was significant in that he was coming off a bad loss to Cyril Gane in August for the interim heavyweight title. Lewis said he felt massive pressure for that title fight, especially given the fact that it was a 5-round main eventer in his hometown of Houston, Texas. In Lewis's eyes, he performs better when there's no pressure, and showed that in his win over Daukaus. Now Lewis is calling for a fight against former UFC heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic. Not only does Lewis believe the fight would be a great matchup to watch, pitting a wrestler against a striker, but that it could help his fans in many other ways.
Yeah, it's like I fought just about everyone in the division that's in the top 10. So it's just like a new face, new blood.
Oh my God. What a fight.
You know, just I believe that I'm be heavy underdog in this fight, and it makes give my fans their money back from the Gane fight.
Stipe hasn't fought since he was knocked out by Francis Ngannou last March and lost a UFC heavyweight belt in the process. But Stipe and Lewis have never fought, and it remains to be seen who could challenge the winner of the scheduled title unification bout between Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane set for UFC 270 later this month. There's also John Jones waiting in the shadows of the heavyweight division, but it remains to be seen what the UFC intends to do with Jones.